Hello, my name is Ismail Ramirez, and I'm one of the ECS's career counseling interns for ECS's Internship and Career Services. Today, I'm going to talk to you about Ace Your Interview. So, I'm going to talk to you about interview skills, um, what to do before an interview, during an interview, after an interview, any upcoming events and resources. All right. So, here's some things you do before an interview, and it's important to prep before an interview, definitely. So do your homework. Research the company. What I mean by that is, let's say so the company is, um, let's say it's Sacramento City Airport, the Sacramento Airport. So research them and see what they're in the news for, or what new things are they building. I know they're currently building a new terminal. So look into that, right? See what they envision for this new terminal, and then any questions that you might have for them, be sure to take note of that. That gives you an understanding of what the current needs of the company is or the organization is needing. And what are some projects you may assist with or directly oversee. So these are some things to keep in mind. So do your homework, stay informed, check what they've been in the news for. Have they, are they getting new airlines coming to the Sacramento City Airport, things like that. And any employee insights, if you know anyone that works in the company, talk with them about it. Ask them if they can help prep you. Ask them to see, maybe some interview questions that they already asked if you know people or have any mutual connections. And then study the job description, right? Make sure you read the whole thing, even the parts that are pretty generic of like, let's say benefits or things like that. They could always, put some things that you might miss that is important either to you or to just the job. So be sure you're really taking the time to read the job description and studying, what your job entails, what you are required to do, what they're expecting you to do, what knowledge and skills you're expected to know or have, and what is it that, the job, the benefits that come from it, the pay, to see if you can negotiate, things like that. This is all part of just being able to inform yourself before you go into an interview because being informed of the job and the company helps build your confidence for the interview because then you have very tailored specific questions that you might need, and you're also interviewing them. Does your skill set and your experiences and your knowledge, um, does the company you want, this company fit into what you want to provide, what skill set you want to provide? And you want to check to see it. And if the culture is not what you want it to be, if you don't want to work in a certain culture of the company, let's say that they're not they work a lot of hours and there's not a lot of overtime, or they don't pay enough for overtime, or things like, or they don't pay overtime, or whatever the case may be, right? Um, is that the company you want to work for? Um, what type of company culture are you, comfortable with, or and what type you aren't. And that's important questions to know about yourself. So definitely study. Um, you want to prepare to answer the common interview questions. A lot of these questions are behavioral questions. All right. So here's I'll go over a few. Can you tell me about your leadership experiences? Tell me about yourself is typically the first question everyone asks. And what they don't mean is by tell me about yourself, and then you go into all your hobbies and you like to you enjoy movies or things like that. What you're really ask when they ask that question is, tell us about yourself in your career sense, in the career sense, and what are your ambitions for your career? What have you done to support those ambitions and those goals, right? Talk about that. It's important, what are your major strengths and weaknesses? Not just strengths, but what are your weaknesses? Everyone has them. Everyone has areas of growth. Um, and it's important to know yours, and speak on that and speak how you're improving those currently, right? So you want to be sure to know how to answer these common interview questions that a lot of companies and industries, they'll ask these questions more often than not. In your field of the technical field of, ECS students, they might ask a few technical questions, um, to test your knowledge of like the material, the programs, or the tools, or things like that. They might test your technical knowledge, ask about that, but typically most of the questions are going to come from just behavioral questions, how you react, how you will be able to work with other people, how you work with other people, right? How do you handle setbacks? How do you handle mistakes? And how do you keep moving forward and finding solutions around that? How you handle problems. So it's important to practice these. All right. So definitely, take a look at these and try to see how you can answer these questions. It's important to do a mock interview. You want to practice and build that confidence, right? And the best way to do that is by continuing to do the same thing, right? Let's say, like any other sport, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So the more you do interviews, the better you get at them. But, sometimes interviews are hard to come by. So you can do mock interviews. You can have your friends, you can have a career counselor like myself, do mock interviews with you. And the more you do them, the better you become at them. Right. Uh, Try to make if you are doing interviews with friends or family, try to make it as authentic as possible. Dress up in your business professional or business casual attire. Sit across, hopefully, maybe a desk, um, and and try to stay in character for your friend or family member to stay in character, for you to stay in character throughout the whole thing, and then give feedback. So seek feedback on your performance at the end. Um, Consider using interview preparation tools, which we'll go over in a bit, and then record yourself on camera, especially if it's online. Let's say your interview is going to be online. It's important. There's different types of ways to interview. Online interview, you do want to practice that. You want to know that you have to look at the camera, not at people tend to look at people's faces when they talk to each other, but on an interview online, the face of the other person is not actually on the camera. It's a little bit below. So when you're speaking, you have to speak into the camera, but when you're hearing someone, you're maybe looking a little bit below on the screen because the face is right there. So that's just important to keep in mind. There's other things online is make sure you have a blank background. What I would say is you can get a Sacramento State background, you can download one and then you can put that on your laptop, or computer, whatever it is that you're using for the interview. Um, and then you can just to make sure there's no like just there's nothing going on in the background that's distracting, right? Make sure you have good lighting, things like that. So one of the tools that you can definitely use is called Big Interview. You can find this on our on Sacramento State's website for career services. So it is really helpful. You can browse. They have a ton of questions and answers and guides on how to answer those. So the questions that I showed you earlier, a lot of them you can find on Big Interview, and you can practice that. You can also do practice with sets with mock interviews. So they'll give you random questions, and you can record yourself doing them, and it actually gives you video feedback, to do that. So Big Interview is a very helpful tool, and highly recommend using it. And you can use the STAR method to build your best answers. And I'll go into the STAR method a little bit later, okay? Which is right now. So the STAR method is, if you haven't heard of it before, it's been around for a while. Um, you the STAR is an acronym, so the S stands for situation, the T for task, the A for action, and the R is for results. So in essence, the STAR method is to keep you focused on your question. So let's say the question above is tell me about a time when you demonstrated creativity and leadership when working on a project or assignment. So, you may have had many experiences, being a creative or a leader in a project or assignment. You have a lot of classes, you've done a lot of classes, either in high school or during college. So you probably have a lot of different experiences to choose from. But What tends to happen is that if a lot of students don't prepare and use the STAR method, or at least students and just interviewees in general, they don't have to be students, but interviewees in general tend to ramble. So you tend to, go into one example, but then jump around to another example because you want to highlight a certain thing that you did or accomplishment that you did or something like that. But then you jump to another example after that. It tends to get people tend to ramble. But what the STAR method does is keeps you focused and keeps you um, to tell just one story. So the S again stands for situation. So you're just going to describe one situation and describe the who, what, where, when, how, the et cetera, those types of things. It could be one sentence or whatever the case may be. The example here is during my last semester, I was responsible for managing the after school program, which was, you can say the name of that. And then the T stands for this task, right? So what was the challenge? What was the issue? What was going on? What was your challenge? Right? And you want to relate that to the question. And then the A stands for action. So what did you do and how did you do it? How did you resolve this challenge or how did you work on this problem? What did you work with people to work on this problem? What tools did you use? What strategies did you use? Things like that. And the R stands for results. And what was the accomplishment or achievement, right? Was the problem fixed? Even if it wasn't, let's say that, the if the question is asking, tell us about the time when you had a disagreement with a coworker, right? And you can explain the situation, the task, and the action. Oh, I had a disagreement when I worked at McDonald's over, you know, a certain delivery system, right? This is just an example, but what we did was we discussed it amongst ourselves and discussed it with the staff, and then we voted on, which delivery system method we were going to use. The result being, my idea was not the one chosen. However, what I learned from this though is it's important to take into account everyone's opinions. That's going to affect everyone in the workforce, and then ask for consensus and then vote on it in a democratic manner. That's what I learned from this, and that's what I grew from this. The results doesn't have to be a positive that you got your way. The results can be, it could even you don't even have to accomplish, the task. You could have failed in the task, but what did you learn from it, right? So the results can be very, very different depending on what you want to highlight, what you want the employer to know. If you're like flexible, adaptable, or you are a person growing and learning how to lead, things like that. So it's important to use the STAR method. You can use them for basically mostly any questions. The only questions that you can't really use it for are more technical questions, because technical questions usually have one answer, right? How do you use Excel, right? How do you use formulas on Excel? There's certain ways to do it, but there's kind of only one real way to answer that question. So you wouldn't really need to use the STAR method for that. But for behavioral questions, and like I said, most interviews do have behavioral questions. The STAR method is going to be very, very useful. So you prepare some questions to ask also. Once you're done asking questions, or once they're done asking you questions, most interviews they'll ask, okay, do you have any questions for us? Um, so have some questions prepared. Show since a sincere interest in the company's growth, culture, or role, right? And that's what you do when you research, right? And then you actually get to go in depth on what the company is doing currently. Use open-ended questions for valuable insights. Don't ask the closed questions. Open-ended questions like, oh, what are some challenges coming up in the field, or what are you excited about? How are you handling this new initiative, right? They're questions that you can't really answer with a yes or no. That's a closed question being, oh, are you excited for this new initiative? An interviewer could say yes or no, right? That's a closed question, but you want to say open. You want to keep it open-ended to continue that conversation. Avoid asking about salary or time off, at least right after the interview or during the interview. What I would say is, once unless they offer you the position, once they offer you the position, then you can talk about salary and you negotiate that or time off because are actively want you for the role. But I would not suggest doing it while you're being interviewed because they haven't really made a decision yet, right? So I would avoid asking about that for now, until they offer you the position, send you the that yes, we're going to hire you, right? Skip questions that can be answered from the company's website or job posting, right? Ask a genuine question that you want to know about, right? Think something you can't find on their website or on the job description for the job that you applied for. So definitely ask a very sincere question on that end. So here are some typical questions to ask that you might find useful. What are the next steps in the hiring process if it doesn't say in the job description, right? What are the common career paths in this department? What gets you most excited about the company's future? What's your favorite part about working here? Can you tell me more about the day-to-day responsibilities of the job? What learning and development opportunities will I have in this role? Those are all open-ended questions and genuine questions that most of the time you can't find on the company website or the job description. Plan your outfit. Again, business professional, business casual. You always want to um, dress a level above what the typical wear is. So if most people wear just, pants and a polo shirt, you might want to wear slacks and a collared shirt, right? So here are some things, here's some examples for men and women on the typical attire. Plan logistics, right? If it's in person or if it's on video, confirm the details for an in-person interview, the address, the floor it's on, the room number. If it's online, make sure your Zoom is updated. Oops, sorry. Make sure your Zoom's updated, so you're not scrambling to update your Zoom and you don't want to be late for the interview. Double check the interview date and time and the time zone. If the interview's on the East Coast and they send you the interview and it's at 3 p.m., but really it's 6 p.m. because it's in the East Coast, you want to make sure it's which time zone it is. So that's important. Plan transportation if it's in person, arrive early, try to arrive 15 minutes early, um, to be able to just give yourself time to prepare, use the restroom, anything like that, any last minute preparation, and show that you can be early. Map out the route and consider traffic, have a backup plan for any transportation issues. Prepare documents. You could take your resume or digital portfolios if just in case. If they ask for it, you have it right there. You can use a Padfolio to organize all of these documents. A Padfolio is kind of a folder that also has notes that you can write on. It has a pen. It has compartments to put things in, like your resumes. And again, be prepared and confident, right? As much as they're interviewing you, you are also interviewing them. So again, be confident that you do have the skill set. They are curious about you. That's why they wanted you for an interview. So now it's the time to say, okay, now I have to see if their company is worth my skill set, right? And that builds that confidence. And then rest and relax before the night before, right? Do whatever self-care routine that you have, whatever that is. Do that the day before. Get a good night's sleep, especially for morning interviews. Make sure you wake up early, have that cup of coffee if you drink coffee. Consider some form of self-care and to reduce anxiety, like meditation, podcast, music, spending time with loved ones, cooking. Again, whatever works for you, do any self-care routine the day or the morning before. So during the interview, again, arrive early, smile and be polite to everyone you meet. You never know who you're meeting. Show your personality. Offer a firm handshake. Don't interrupt. Be positive, enthusiastic for this. Um, And you want to listen and respond when you're during the interview. So stay focused and actively listen, head nodding, um, audible cues of like, yes, you understand, or show attentiveness through nods, eye contact, and seeking clarification. Provide relevant and meaningful answers. Answers should be between 2 to 3 minutes. Again, the STAR method can really help you focus down onto what the question is asking and what situation you want to describe and what accomplishment you want to results you want to show the interview. And emphasize your unique skill set. Everyone has their own unique skill set, what they're good at, what their areas of growth are, and you want to emphasize your strengths and show that you are growing in your areas that are needing growth. Body language, right? Sit up straight with your shoulders back, maintain eye contact to demonstrate confidence and honesty and connection. Speak clearly and confidently, right? So I'm going to let you try this now. So I'll let you pause the video, but try if you have someone with you, say if they can do a quick little mock interview. If not, practice in front of a mirror. But here's an example, right? And remember the STAR method. But give me an example of a time you faced a conflict with a coworker or group member. How did you handle it? Another question is, tell me about a time when you failed during your academics or career journey. So here's the STAR method for you to use. All right, so I hope you had enough time to use the STAR method to answer these questions. I hope you were able to, if you were fortunate enough to have someone with you and they were able to help you out, that's great. If not, try to see if you can practice it in front of somebody, maybe a friend or a family member. So after the interview, you want to send a thank you note always. Ask for a LinkedIn or email. Send a thank you note saying to stand out after the interview. Express excitement or interest in the role again, and then address any additional points of concern, and really just thank them for the opportunity. Here's an example of a template you could use. Um, it's really just thanking them for the opportunity and the conversation, and hope to see them and talk with them soon. So yeah. So that concludes our this video on interview skills. Um, What I would say is if you have any questions, email us at ecs-careercounseling@csus.edu. You can also come and visit us at room 1204 into Shannon Hall. We're there in the Career Center. You can also go to our website and you can make an appointment with a career counselor if you want help on a mock interview. All right, well, that's it. Thank you all, and you all have a great rest of your day.